All right. So happy Mother's Day again. Give a hand to all our ladies today. We keep saying it, but we want to make sure you know that you are loved and appreciated. Mothers are amazing and wonderful people, aren't they? Jeff, isn't your mother amazing and wonderful? Absolutely. She put up with you for how many years? That's right. They all deserve a gold star. I heard an amazing story about a mom in the hospital. I was visiting this part of my term, but he looked like an old man, right? I know he was in his late 70s. And he was in the hospital, and he was having all kinds of health issues and just not doing well and had been sick for a long time. And I asked him, I said, well, who's been helping take care of you? Because obviously he was just too weak and too wore out to take care of himself. And I expected to hear maybe him say his wife or his daughter or sister. He said, my mother. And I thought, well, he's got some dementia going on. Sometimes people have dementia and they get confused. So I thought, yeah, I know. I looked at his chart. His mother was 101 years old. And yes, he lived with his mother. And he said, please pray for my mother because she's in the hospital too. And I thought, well, she's 101 and taking care of you, no wonder. So anyhow, so I thought, what is it like to be 101 years old and still taking care of your child? I don't know. My mother's 87. She might find out in a few years. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I mentioned I'm very blessed to live with my wife and my mother. My mother has been raising children nonstop since 1954. Try and wrap your head around that. She's had a child. I'm going to make her cry or run out screaming. I don't know which. And then my wife, we have 11 children. I think most of you probably know that, but I figured it out. She was either giving birth or nursing children for about 22 years nonstop in her life. So they're both amazing mothers. But I think all mothers are amazing. You know, the idea to carry around a human being inside of you for 9 months and then push that thing out is pretty amazing in itself. And then to take care of them while they're teenagers and let them live, right? Right? They were showing this little thing on Fox and Friends this morning. I don't know if any of you caught it, but I caught a little piece of it. One of the male hosts there, his wife made him do some kind of thing where they gave him the experience of some machine that made him feel like I didn't catch all that, Karen, but I mean, he was laying there crying like a little girl. I mean, he was having a hard time. And he said, what is that, about a 10 out of 10? And the lady said, no, that's a 6 out of 10. And his co-host said, I had a baby and I didn't even have any medication, you big wimp. So anyway, all women are amazing to have babies and raise them. Or for those who are adoptive mothers to take another person's child and to raise that child and love that child. All that is amazing. And some of you are mothers here this morning. I think all of us had mothers, right, at some point in our lives. Some of us are married to mothers. One thing we can say is that not all mothers are exactly the same, right? Yeah. Not all mothers are exactly the same. There are some differences. So I was looking up some of the different kinds of moms. I thought it would be fun to talk about some different kinds of moms. The first one is called the tiger mom. Has anybody heard of the tiger mom? Megan, you might have heard of the tiger mom because you were in China, because I think that's where it comes from, tiger moms. But tiger moms are known for being very strict and very focused on the academic achievement and performance of their children. That's what tiger moms are all about. It's not a particularly flattering name for a parenting style, but it's the idea that sometimes even they shame their children into performing up to expectations, and it may come with a lot of heavy threats. It's associated with the Chinese parenting style, but it doesn't necessarily mean that every tiger parent is Chinese. Parents from a variety of backgrounds can adopt this parenting style, and not every Chinese mother embraces it, but that's just how it got to be associated. But it's important to remember that while it's a stereotype, it's not a rule. The second one, the tiger mom, but then there's the helicopter mom. Have you heard of a helicopter? What do helicopters do? They spin around, right? They hover, right? And that term was first used back in the late 60s. Dr. Haim Ginot, his book Parents and Teenagers, talked about teenagers who said that their parents would hover over them like a helicopter. And it became popular enough that it's actually in the dictionary in 2011 now. It was put in the dictionary. It's also called lawnmower parenting or bulldozer parenting. But a helicopter mom is a style of a parent who kind of overly focuses on her child, says Dr. Carolyn Deitch, director of the Treatment for Anxiety Disorders. I'm passing no judgment on anyone here, right? I'm just sharing the facts, okay? Then the next one is called the snowplow mom. The snowplow mom. The snowplow mom pushes away every obstacle. You think about what a snowplow does, right? It clears the road. Anything that could make her sweet little darling child unhappy, distressed, worried, or fearful, they don't want their kids to have to deal with any kind of hardship. So they're going to do everything in their power to plow away any obstacle in the way. They're kind of micromanagers. They want the best for their young'uns. They're different than helicopter moms, though. I didn't know the distinguish, but they talked about it. Helicopter moms may try to keep their child's freedom because of fear. A snowplow mom will let their kids walk to school or take risks as long as it helps them get to where they need to be. One of the most notorious attributes of a snowplow mom is the desire to make life easy and successful for the child. People with this parenting style will do almost anything. They'll ask for and expect special treatment for their children and concessions. These are the types of parents that call their college-age kids to wake them up for class or call a teacher to complain about a poor grade. And I think maybe it's some of those parents that like bribe colleges to get their kids on the rowing team. Whatever. That would be a snowplow mom in extreme. And then the fourth kind is called the panda mom. You think about pandas. What are pandas? They're big and they're cuddly. Panda mom is the option that gives kids their independence to explore their world and make their own decisions. So it's a much more of a hands-off model of a mom. A panda mom is not lazy. They simply don't believe that kids need to be pushed towards their ideas. Instead, they recognize their children are each individuals who develop their own principles and standards. They don't intervene in every aspect of their kids' lives. Panda parents provide the structure that the children need to investigate their worlds. They may encourage their kids to play outside after school instead of bogging them down with extra activities and extra homework. Panda moms teach their kids how to ask for help and then allow them to go off in whatever direction they choose. The aim of panda moms is to create a strong relationship and allowing their kids to feel safe to explore the boundaries of their life. Now, those aren't my definitions. Those are just different ones. But I thought it was interesting. So I don't want you to spend the rest of the time pointing at your mother or, that's what but already happened, huh? Sorry about that. My whole point was to simply say that there's lots of different kinds of moms in the world today, right? Not all moms are the same. And the same is true in the Bible. And you can see a whole variety of moms in the Bible. And so I thought it would be fun to spend a few minutes looking at a few of the different moms in the Bible and their parenting styles. Now, understand that we're not supposed to necessarily, these are not prescriptive. Flo, there's a difference between descriptive and prescriptive, right? A description is this is what they did. A prescription is this is how you do it. So a lot of these are descriptive. They're saying what these moms did and did not do, not necessarily saying you ought to do this because that mom did that. So the first one, and I already read from Genesis 21. If you want to turn there in your Bibles, Genesis 21 is the story of Sarah as a mom. And what do we know about Sarah? Anybody know anything about Sarah? She was old, right? She wasn't always old, but we know she's beautiful. If you go back and read some of the stories that take place before that, when Abraham comes from the Ur of the Chaldees to settle in the Promised Land, and some of the powerful kings that were there, they looked at Sarah and said, "Wow, this is a beautiful woman." They wanted to make them part of their royal harem. And Abraham said, "Yeah, that's my sister, RJ. That's my sister, right?" kind of a little spineless act anyway. I guess he didn't want to get killed. But anyway, but imagine being even well into her lifespan, she's still so beautiful that, she's desired by kings and so forth. So she's a beautiful mom. She's a pragmatic mom, right? How many women would say, if they had, dealing with their own infertility for all of these years, would say, hey, look, I've got a good friend over here. Why don't you go ahead and have a baby with her? How many men would say my wife would go all over that, right? Probably not too many of us, right? But she was pragmatic, right? She wanted to help God. Because God had told Abraham that you're going to be this father of nations, and she realized that, this lady's not going to have any babies, right? So she was trying to help God keep his promises. Anybody here ever try to help God keep his promises? You ever try to help God? Yeah, we sometimes do that, try to help. Well, God couldn't possibly do it the way that he needs to do it, so I got to figure out a way to do it for him. Well, guess what? God gets the last laugh. God does not need us to help him do what he says he's going to do, right? He says he's going to do something. We can trust that he's going to do it. But she was pragmatic. Well, she'll have a, and this was not unusual, right? And we have surrogate parents today. We know, now today they harvest eggs and they have surrogate parents in those kind of ways. But of course, technology and science didn't work that way, so they might have their slave or their servant bear a child on their behalf and claim to be the mother, to raise it as their own child. And that's what happened. And so Sarah and Abraham have a child through Hagar, and everything is fine, right? And presumably Sarah welcomes this little baby, this little Ishmael, as her own child. Fine. And then the strangest thing happened. God kept his promise, Jeff. He kept his promise. And Abraham and Sarah together had a biological child between the two of them. And when that child was born, then suddenly Sarah is faced with a dilemma. Here's this child that I have raised, Ishmael, as my child, but now I've got my own biological child. And who's going to be the one that inherits the promises that God said? Because God said to Abraham, I'm going to make a great nation of you. Through your descendants, I'm going to give this land. So there's some big, important covenantal questions that come up. And God basically was saying, this child is going to be the child of the covenant. But God was very gracious. He said, even though you kind of messed up, Sarah, I'm still going to bless this other son as well. And of course, the descendants of Ishmael also became a great nation. Now, the problem is that the descendants of Abraham through Isaac and the descendants of Abraham through Ishmael have not always gotten along particularly well. If you study like the last 4,000 years of history, and still today, the Arab-Israeli conflict that goes on still has to do with contesting the land that was promised to Abraham between his children. So that's the challenge sometimes with being that kind of a snowplow parent who tries to do God's work necessarily for him. It can create problems, and in that case, it did. But that doesn't mean that Sarah was ill-intended. She wanted the best for his child, and I think that's true with most mothers. They want what's best for their child. But learning how to do that within the balance of trusting God to keep his promises is a challenge. The next mama, let's turn back. Genesis has all kinds of dysfunctional families in it. So if you ever want to feel better about your family, read the book of Genesis, because you'll see these families were all screwed up, and somehow God managed to do all kinds of things, even through these screwed up people. So Jacob and Esau, right? So Isaac has son, twins, Jacob and Esau. Isaac, through his wife Rebekah, had these twin boys. And Esau is the older of the two twins. And because Esau is the older of the two twins, he stands to inherit the bulk of the family estate, the family covenant. Well, his mama, Rebekah, kind of liked Jacob better than Esau. Mamas aren't supposed to like one kid more than another. Jennifer, you can speak as an expert of this because you only have one child, right? Right. you like Brody the best. That's right. What was it? The Smothers Brothers. Those of you old enough remember the Smothers Brothers. One of them said, "Mom always liked you best." Right. So sibling rivalry. Sibling rivalry's been around since Cain and Abel. Right. Since Cain killed Abel. But for whatever reason, Esau was his daddy's boy, right? He was the hunter. He was the rough, manly man, kind of. His father took to him. Jacob was a little more domestic, right? And Mama kind of took him under her wing and taught him how to cook and take care of him. Nothing wrong with either one of them, but the problem came when Isaac, in Genesis 27, when Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see. And he calls for Esau, his older son, and says, "My son," and he says, Here I am, Dad. He says, "I am now an old man and don't know the day of my death. Now then, get your equipment, get your quiver and your bow, go out into the open country and hunt me some wild game for me, and prepare me the kind of tasty food that I like and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my blessing before I die." Now, Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. So, right, father-son conversation, mom was kind of sticking her ear in. You know, Sarah used to do that too, right? I guess they had tents. They didn't have very thick doors. But there she's listening in. And when Esau left for the open country to hunt game and bring it back, Rebekah said to Jacob, her son, "Look, I overheard your father say to your brother Esau, bring me some game and prepare me some tasty food to eat so that I may give you my blessing in the presence of the Lord before I die." Now, listen, son. Listen carefully while I tell you. Go out to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats so I can prepare some tasty food for your father just the way he likes it. Then take it to your father to eat so that he may give you his blessing before he dies. And Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, "But Mama, my brother Esau is a hairy man. I have smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him and would bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing." And his mother said to him, "My son, let the curse fall on me. Just do what I say. Go and get them for me." So he went and got him and brought him to his mother, and she prepared some tasty food just the way his father liked it. And Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her son, which she had, and put them on her younger son Jacob. So we're going to dress him up. She covered his hands and the smooth part of his neck with goat skins. And then she handed her son Jacob the tasty food and bread she had made. This woman was committed, wasn't she? I mean, you talk about a snowplow mom. This is a snowplow mom. She is committed. She handed her son Jacob. He went to his father and said, "Father, yes, my son, who is it?" Jacob says, "It's me, Esau, your firstborn." It's Esau here, right? "I've done what you told me. Sit up and eat some of this food so that you can give me your blessing." And Isaac said, "Well, how'd you do it so quickly, my son?" "And the Lord God gave me success," he replied. Well, that's a little lie, isn't it? And then Isaac came near to Jacob and said, "Come here near me and touch me. My son, I need to know whether you really are Esau or not." And Jacob went close to his father, who touched him and said, "Your voice sounds like Jacob, but your hands are the hands of Esau." Remember, he's got this wool on his hand. He didn't recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother. So he proceeded to bless him. "Are you really my son?" he asked. So he's thinking, this does not add up. But he says, "I am." He says, "Bring me some of your game, and I may give you my blessing." And he brought it to him, and he brought him some wine to drink. And he said, "Come here and let me give you a kiss." And he went and kissed him. And when he caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him. He said, "Oh, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you the heavens' dew and the earth's riches, an abundance of grain, and may nations serve you and bow down and be Lord over your brothers," right? So you're going to be the one in charge of the family. "May the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed." Of course, the rest of the story we know. Esau comes in, does what he said, loses out on the blessing. What do we know about Jacob's mama, Rebekah? Snowplow mom, yep. Helicopter mom, showed favoritism, was kind of sneaky, wasn't she? She's kind of sneaky for her son. fought to get her favorite son his blessing, his birthright. Nothing wrong with fighting for your kid, right? But she kind of went about it a way that wouldn't necessarily get her any gold stars. And yet somehow through that messy, dysfunctional family business, God still got his word accomplished, didn't he? Because indeed, Jacob is the one whom God had chosen. So God sometimes uses some strange things to bring about his will. The next one, and we'll look at her real quick, is Jochebed. That's Moses' mama. We learn her name from the book of Numbers, but we learn her story from Exodus chapter 2. So let me go there. Exodus chapter 2. We fast forward through history. Abraham's descendants are now enslaved in Egypt and have been for 400 years. To the point that the tribe of Israel is growing so great as slaves that the Pharaoh is becoming concerned that they're growing too powerful and too strong. And so he fires off a decree that says we're going to kill all the male children born of the Israelites because we don't want them to be so powerful that they might rise up and attack and defeat us. And so that's where we pick up the story. Now, a man from the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman. She became pregnant with a son. We find out later the name's Jochebed. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But she could hide him no longer. She got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch and placed the child in it and put it among the reeds among the banks of the Nile River. And his sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. And Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. And she saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it, saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. And then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. And so the girl went and got the baby's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." And so the woman took the baby and nursed him. And when the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." Wow. There is a resourceful mama, Flo, right? A resourceful mama. Not only does she save him, right? She was so vigorous that she gave birth, didn't call the midwives in and risk having him be known and put to death as an infant. Saves his life, keeps him hidden for several months. And then when he's too big for her to hide anymore, then she comes up with this plan, creates an ark, really, that little basket, little ark, and puts it out on the river and has her daughter Miriam watch out and see, and strategically places it upriver from the palace where Pharaoh's daughter would be out taking her daily ritual bath. And there he floats on by, and Pharaoh's daughter takes him out of the river and says, "Well, this is a little Hebrew baby." It's one thing for Pharaoh to want to kill all the male boys, but it's another thing for a young mama to look at a child and say, "Wow," and rescue that child. And so when the time came, well, who's going to nurse the child? Who's going to take care of it? Marion says, "Hey, I know a lady that can help," right? So back he goes to his mama, but this time under the protection of Pharaoh. So she's able to raise and instill her own Hebrew values in this child until such time as he's ready then to go into Pharaoh's court. And of course, God is at work through this work and through this faithful mama. Becomes the leader of Israel. The next mama, very quickly, is Jesus' mama, Mary. In Luke 1, we'll just read very briefly. I want to just highlight a couple of things about Mary. In Luke 1:26, in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee, to a virgin pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David. The virgin's name was Mary. An angel went to her and said, "Greetings, you who are highly favored, the Lord is with you." And she was greatly troubled by his words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. The angel said, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. He will be great and be called the Son of the Most High, and the Lord God will give him the throne of his father David. He will reign over Jacob's descendants forever and ever, and his kingdom will have no end." She says, "How can this be? I am a virgin." The angel said, "The Holy Spirit will come on you. The power of the Most High will overshadow you, and the Holy One to be born will be called the Son of God. Even Elizabeth, your relative, is going to have a child in her old age." Lots of women having babies when they're old. What does that mean? "And she who is said to be unable to conceive is in her 6th month, for no word from God will ever fail." "I am the Lord's servant," Mary answered. "May your word be to me fulfilled." And the angel left her. Now, those are some amazing words, right? "Let it be unto me as you have spoken," right? This young girl, Mary, hadn't the clue how any of this was possible beyond anything that any other woman had ever experienced. What they were asking her to do is nothing short of a miracle. And yet her response in her innocence is, "Whatever you want, Lord. I'm open to you. I'm available to you to have your son." Throughout her life, as you follow the story, sometimes she tried to protect Jesus when his ministry began and people started talking and it looked like there might be a plot against his life. She tried to protect him. But then she was still by his side when he was at the cross, and she became the grieving mom, the mom who saw her son die. So Mary is an example of a submissive, God-honoring woman who tries to protect his son and loves his son till the end of her life. And then the final mom that we'll look at is Timothy's mom in 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 5. We don't know a lot about Timothy's mom. But as Paul is writing to Timothy, he simply says, "I am reminded, Timothy, of your sincere faith, which first lived in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice, and I am persuaded now lives in you." So what we simply know here is that Timothy's mom, Eunice, was a faithful mother. And she had received the faith from her mother, Lois, and she had passed it down to Timothy. So the thought of transmitting the faith from generation to generation, and how often that is done through a faithful mother's teaching. We can learn some positive lessons from all of these mothers of the Bible. None of them were perfect, right? None of them were perfect. Even Mary, when she tried to stop Jesus from his ministry by saying he'd lost his mind, she was not perfect. But she was a mama who was looking out to protect her baby, right? None of them were perfect, but they all loved their children, and they fought to protect them and provide for their needs in some difficult occasions. And that's what mamas do, isn't it? Isn't that what mamas do, Carmen?
Yes.
They fight for their kids, right? Don't mess with Mama Bear, right? Don't mess with Mama Bear. I'd sooner rather run against Daddy Bear in the woods than Mama Bear with her cubs, right? And these are examples of that. The fierce love of a mother who protects her children through difficult times. So all I can say is these are descriptive, not always prescriptive. Look through the stories and find those elements of their character that honor God, the love that they have for their children, and use those as examples that we can all take. Peter did that when he looked at the life of Sarah. In 1 Peter 3, he says, he's talking to ladies, he says, "Your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. Rather, it should come from your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. For in this way, the holy women of the past put their hope in God, used to adorn themselves. They submitted themselves to their own husbands, like Sarah, who obeyed Abraham and called him her Lord." Flo, I'll let you decide if that is descriptive or prescriptive. I don't know if you're going to call Bob Lord or not. I'll let you two work those details out. I'll be having a conversation with Karen about that on the way home, and we'll see. I'll report back to you how that goes. "You are her daughters if you do what is right and do not give way to fear." That's a challenge, right? Not giving way to fear. That's the thing I see about these brave and bold mothers of the Bible, is that they fearlessly tried to pursue what was best for their children and to honor God in the process. Charm is deceptive, beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. Well, Browntown doesn't have any city gates, but we do want to honor and praise our mamas today. So I invite you to take time to honor your mama, or remember your mama. She was not perfect, but she was the perfect mama for you. Honor your baby's mother. Mothers, it's okay to be grateful for and even honor the ways that you have loved and sacrificed ourselves. Too often, mothers shame themselves for their mistakes, but you need to honor yourself as well for the ways that you have loved your children. Bob's going to come up. We're going to honor a couple of ladies, and then we're going to ask all of our mamas to stand, and I want to pray a blessing.